AMR, Fox and Friends, on this Thursday. The footage hard to watch. You know the police officer there got a phone call. They're trying to stab us. Ultimately, when you watch that video in slow-mo, you can see what's going on in real time, guys. When police, they have to make a
was sentenced, not sentenced, but was convicted on 2 counts or 3 counts of murder. So I guess that's what he was referring to. He deleted it. It didn't stop the National Fraternal Order of Police from tweeting this out. LeBron James, with his vast resources and influence, should educate himself and, frankly, has a responsibility to do so on the facts before weighing in. This is disgraceful and extremely reckless. The officer saved a young girl's life. No amount of gaslighting will change that fact. Also, let's just add, they're doing an investigation on it.
Yeah.
So how could anyone possibly jump to a conclusion like that when you have to make a split-second decision and you were called to the scene for that exact reason? Someone's got a knife, and then you see someone with a knife ready to stab somebody else.
And that was the point of the Columbus Public Safety Director, Ned Pettis Jr. He said the community should not rush to judgment. It is a
written. That police officer who he put up there, who he doxed. I mean, one of the most famous people in the world threw the photo out of this guy and said, "You're next, accountability." The narrative in his mind is, because that law enforcement officer happened to be white and that female who was trying to stab somebody else happened to be black, this, of course, was something that was about race. It was a mistake made because of race, because of systemic racism. And when you look at the rhetoric at the top of our country right now, well, what Joe Biden said after the verdict of Derek Chauvin earlier this week, that America is a systemically racist country. Now you've got Merrick Garland coming in and saying the Minneapolis Police Department might be systemically racist. We may have to take it over. That's how bad it is. You're sending signals out to everybody that connect the dots on every single one of these, and it's all a racist cop behind that gun making that decision, not a human being, as we've talked a lot about. This female that was involved in the shooting in Brooklyn Center, who had an exemplary record. Tell me that it was race that motivated her decision to pull the the gun instead of the taser, or that officer who saved the life did it because of the race of the person he was shooting at or protecting. It infiltrates everything, and it leads to something like LeBron James saying, well, nope, accountability. You're next, buddy. You're next. I don't even know who you are. I just know the color of your skin, and therefore you're guilty.
Well, and also the young lady in the pink outfit. What if she were stabbed in the heart? What if she were stabbed in the face? What if she had died from it? Police are in a really difficult situation, and they have to make split decisions, like you were saying, split-second decisions. And if someone's in harm's way and there's a crime being committed, she had a weapon.
What if she was your daughter? What if she was LeBron James's daughter?
I will say this. I've never been to a police academy. I don't know. I'm willing to say I don't know how you're trained to act in that situation. People have told me that that's how you do it, but I'm not going to pretend that I went through police training. LeBron James says, here's the reason why I deleted the tweet. He says, I deleted the tweet referencing a Columbus police officer who fatally shot a 16-year-old because it was being used to create more hate.
Well, I mean, this guy, the National Fraternal Order of Police, they have gone through police training, Brian, and they're saying this officer saved a young girl's life. Why aren't we praising him for that?
The only analogy I have is a military analogy, having been through it and seen the way they point fingers and second-guess things that look tough in the moment. But if you've got the experience and you've been in similar situations, you say, I know why the person acted that way. That's why you hear law enforcement defending this officer days after what happened.
Speaking of, you had a guest.
That's right. I talked to Jake Beckett, an amazing guy. He was an NFL player, won a Super Bowl with the New England Patriots, then went to Ranger School, joined the 101st Airborne, got into the military. He talked about how politics is infiltrating sports and the military. Listen to this.
Sports and the military, those institutions, they transcend race, they transcend class, they transcend background, because it's a meritocracy. The left and the media see sports and the military as kind of the final frontier in their takeover. They've taken over academia, they've taken over the legacy media, they've taken over the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., and I think they see sports and the military as these two last institutions of traditional American values, of meritocracy, of patriotism. And look, they're not going to stop until they've taken over everything.
Great point. Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture. The last places where the left-wing ideology has not infected until now, sports and the military.
And I will say, and I'm just going to say on another note, if there's a lot of sports fans in America that were forced to give up sports for a year. Do you know what's still down? Ratings in baseball, big time, but nothing's got more down than basketball. I think 40% down on TNT and ABC and 20% down on ESPN. So maybe people just want an escape when it comes to sports, and that's not what they're getting.
Well, when there's a hot button issue, like we saw that in the NFL with the kneeling, a lot of people decided they weren't going to watch NFL anymore too, and we're seeing it trickle into other sports when they become political as well. All right, so AOC, she says, do you know why there's a climate crisis? Because of racial injustice. Listen to this.
Makes total sense.
The climate crisis is a crisis born of injustice. And it is a crisis born of the pursuit of profit at any and all human and ecological cost. That's right. Which means that we must recognize in legislation that the trampling of indigenous rights is a cause of climate change. The trampling of racial justice is a cause of climate change, because we are allowing people and we are allowing ourselves to make sure, we are allowing folks to deny ourselves human rights and deny people the right to health care, the right to housing and education.
Whoa. That is all of the left-wing wokeism education rolled into one. That is, capitalism is evil, America is evil because of the way it was founded. So we're defined by our sins from the very beginning. It's not 1776, it's 1619. Therefore, because it was white people or anybody that was here in America building this country with capitalism and made mistakes but recovered from them, and thankfully we're in a better place today than we were then. You got to tear it all down. It's all bad, and any emission that came from that is based on racism, and that's where climate change came from. I'm losing my place just talking.
I think that she had like 5 different topics, but she has plans today and tomorrow. So she's like, I got one speech, I'm just going to put it all in. They don't belong in the same speech. I don't think you can do that. Maybe in her mind she can do that and put out a video.
They think they can.
It's interesting you say that, because Logan Hall from the Daily Caller wrote, truly impressive woke word salad here. And then the NRCC Deputy Director of Communications, his name is Mike Berg, and that's the National Republican Congressional Committee. He shared that speech on Twitter, and more than 750,000 people have watched it. Others were joking around about other possible things that could be blamed on climate change as well.
But the pursuit of profit, what she's talking about is capitalism. The miracle of capitalism, which has uplifted the world. If you look at what happened in the 20th century, the innovations and inventions that occurred over a 100-year span that have improved life expectancy, child mortality, across every race, every gender, the improvements we've made for mankind. I mean, I have more technology in this iPhone than we had in the shuttle that went to the moon in 1969. I mean, what capitalism has brought us is beyond anything we could have imagined 100 years ago. She's indicting that. She's saying because of that, we're emitting more. Therefore, capitalism is evil because climate change is our religion. The world's going to end in 10 years, and the Zoom call that Joe Biden's going to be on today with world leaders is the most important thing we need to be talking about. We need to grind our economy to the halt. What's China going to do about it? Probably nothing, but don't worry. LeBron James loves them, and he hates us. And here, I believe this is live right now, by the way. Joe Biden is the virtual climate summit today. All 40 leaders will be hitting that free Zoom call link, Brian, that you learned about earlier this week, and they'll be saving the planet.
So it's going to be great. The President Xi is going to be on it. Vladimir Putin committed to it. So when Navalny, the dissident, is dying in jail, when you have 150,000 troops welled up at the Ukrainian border, when you have fighter jets buzzing the island of Taiwan, and when you have capitalists in jail in Hong Kong, President Xi says, you've got to be saying, are you kidding me? You want me on a call to talk about how hot the planet's getting by 2 degrees? Really? Can I buy a coal plant in the middle or after my speech? Because that's really what we're talking about. It's unbelievable. We used to have we used to be in a situation where people on the outside of America hated America, and we could deal with that. But now the people that hate America actually are here working for America to destroy America.
And apologizing for our enemies. Where's the one word of criticism from Comrade Cortez about the Communist Chinese?
None.
Or one word of criticism from LeBron James about the Communist Chinese? Never. Well, they apologize for them.
NBA cut a new deal with them.
It's because Democrats have more of a global perspective. That's why when President Trump said America first, Democrats are saying it's more global. Open borders, let everyone in.
Well, if they want to judge everybody, then start judging the Communist Chinese, too. And they won't do it.
Right. And the GM that spoke up in support of Hong Kong and the NBA pulled the plug on the NBA for a short period of time, LeBron James condemned the GM.
When you lose the culture, you lose the entire conversation. It's our K through 12 classrooms and our universities. That stuff that Comrade Cortez just said, that is what they teach in your kids' high school, in your kids' community college. That is what they're learning. How do you expect them to love America?
You mean free community college?
Oh, and then the debt will be erased, too, if you went to one of those indoctrination camps as well. They got it all covered for you.
All right, Jillian has some more headlines.
Tracy is signaling plans to promote critical race theory in America's schools. The Education Department wants a grant program for history and civics education to prioritize, quote, projects that incorporate racially, ethnically, culturally, and linguistically diverse perspectives in teaching and learning. So what does that mean? Here to react, former Education Secretary under Ronald Reagan and host of The Wise Guys on Fox Nation, Dr. Bill Bennett. Dr. Bennett, does this bother you?
Yeah, it bothers me. You said a minute ago, a couple minutes ago, how did the people who hate America get to govern America? Well, they persuaded a lot of people, millions of people, to distrust America, to doubt America, and some even to hate America. And then they voted for them. That's how it works. Education is critical. It's a critical issue. I wish the Republicans appreciate it as much as the Democrats do. What you've got in this piece of legislation, Brian, is, among other things, $1 billion a year over 6 years, $6 billion to go into the schools to teach critical race theory, which is bad in itself, but it's also to teach hatred between the races, that America is a terrible and corrupt country, and, just to close the circle, to keep the people who hate America in charge of America. And they're going to do it with money to bribe the schools.
So in other words, they're not going to mandate it, but they say if you want that grant, you're going to go by this curriculum. So you're almost bribing them to do it. But Bill, what happened to the Democratic Party? Do they always hate America this much? It's almost as if, you know, Joe Biden forgot that we have tape of him in the 70s and 80s. This is not the Joe Biden that we saw come up.
No, it's not the Joe Biden. I was chairman of the committee that confirmed me as the first drug czar. He thought I was not tough enough in law enforcement. He was a lock-em-up guy, lock-em-up Joe. The world has changed, and with it, the Democrat Party. I used to be a Democrat a long time ago. But the party left in terms of foreign policy, left in terms of domestic policy. The lefties took it over. But look at the power that they have wielded. A lot of people on the show, you guys have said many times, foundations, corporations now, the universities, the media, Hollywood, big tech. Why are they all going in this direction? Well, I want Americans, and I want conservatives, and I want Republicans to realize it's because the Democrats paid attention to what's being taught in the schools. We talk about tax policy, regulation, commerce, all those things are very important. But if you want to change a country, change the minds of the children.
So, real quick, Bill, what could be done about it? You have a lot of influence in the Republican Party, and it's got to start with the curriculum and the school boards. Do you think your party realizes that?
I think it actually starts with the people. As Madison said in the Federalist was quoted earlier on your show, it's the virtue of the people, the real virtue of the people. We need a cultural Tea Party, like we had the Tea Party on taxes. We need a party that understands what Daniel Patrick Moynihan said. Politics is important, but it proceeds from culture. It's derivative of culture. This is starting to come around. You got people like Andrew Gutman there, the guy at the Beerley School in New York, and other people. But yes, Republicans, and I'm going to be talking to them, they hear the word civics. Civics secures democracy. That's $1 billion. I'm for it. No, don't get misty-eyed. Look at the fine print. Look at the words. Look at what they're going to do. The left has been successful by understanding that the most important thing is what the children are taught, because they become voters later on. And we are now seeing what it is they have wrought.
Started in the colleges, then they're working their way through primary schools.
Yep.
While the Republicans are focusing on battleground states and key Senate seats, the Democrats said we're going to win long term. And they're beginning to see the fruits of that. And you see it with the squad, and you see it with AOC. Your eyebrows go up in the air and go, where did that come from? This is where it came from. It came from the starting in grade school, and that's what we get representing Queens. Thanks so much, Bill Bennett. Appreciate it.
Economics may trickle down, I don't know, but education sure does. Universities, down to the schools, it's everywhere now.
Right. You can make a difference. People will listen to you. Bill Bennett, thank you. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, the White House's climate summit.
Now looking live at the virtual Climate Action Summit, where President Biden just delivered the opening remarks. But as the event gets underway, coal workers fear the green infrastructure push is putting their livelihoods in jeopardy.
They are right. Grady Trimble is talking to some of those workers. He joins us live from West Virginia with more. Hey, Grady.
Hey, good morning. This is a thermal coal surface mine, the kind of coal that's burnt to create your electricity. The United Mine Workers of Association, that's the union that represents miners, has essentially endorsed Biden's climate policy as long as it includes green jobs for displaced miners. This mine in particular is not part of that union. Ralph Ballard is the owner here. You feel a little bit differently about this. You think it'll be devastating for your workers.
Well, we do. We think that it needs to be looked at very, very detailed, and we're not against renewable energies at all. It can be shared with all of us. I think there's a proper way of going about it, and we need to make sure that happens.
If you look at mining jobs in the United States, there was a tick up in the first 3 years of President Trump, then fell off as demand for energy in general fell off during the pandemic. What do you think the future holds under President Biden, or is that part of the problem? You don't know.
We don't know, and it's apparent that if the bill does pass and without any adjustments, then we'll be devastated, and all the families that work out here, the whole communities will be in bad shape, and we don't want that to happen.
What would you like to see as part of it?
I'd like to see the numbers. I'd like to see the study, and like to be proven in a set of rhetoric and written document to see what it actually is, and hopefully Senator Manchin and Senator Capito and our congressional delegation will do that hard work and put those numbers in front of the people to let them be the one to decide, in my opinion.
All right. Thank you, Ralph. We'll see what happens. Of course, President Biden says that his plan would be better for the climate and that it would create millions of green energy jobs. But here on the coal mine, they certainly feel differently. Guys.
All right. Thanks so much, Grady. Let's bring in Sandra Smith, co-anchor of America Reports. Good morning to you, Sandra.
Hi, Ainsley.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. So Janet Yellen yesterday is saying private companies are going to pay for this green transition. Listen to this.
The investment needed to green our economy is enormous. One estimate placed the needed incremental investments at over $2.5 trillion for the United States alone. And private capital will need to fill most of that gap.
It's going to cost a lot of money. $2.5 trillion needed over the next 10 years. Sandra, how are these companies going to pay for this?
So there you go. When we're always asking the question, Ainsley, who's going to pay for this? Now we're really getting some answers. And guess who didn't show up for this initiative yesterday? JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo. They were among 6 banks that did promise that they were going to be a part of these lofty climate change goals, that they were going to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. They didn't show, Ainsley, and it really raised a lot of red flags about the positioning of a lot of these banks who said that they would step in. Looks good publicly, right? But can they follow through? They're on the hook for a lot, Ainsley, at a time where it's pretty difficult to do so. I'll tell you this, Janet Yellen's words were really interesting. And if you read the headlines that came from her speech, Ainsley, you barely got a view of really how big and how bold this plan that she laid out for the American economy really is. Rest assured to those coal workers that Grady Trimble was just talking to about fearing the loss of their jobs, that while Joe Biden says that the plan adversely affects firms and workers in some industries, that was Janet Yellen's words about Biden's plans, Ainsley, he's now also calling on funds for workplace development so that those workers can respond to new opportunities. So, Ainsley, we're spending money so that guys like that coal worker and others lose their jobs. And then in the transition, Biden and Janet Yellen say, we're going to spend more money to help get them new jobs. I mean, it's a bold plan, Ainsley, and it has a lot of consequences.
And those new jobs are not available yet. You also have a special on Fox Nation about Bernie Madoff and how he orchestrated the largest scam that affected Wall Street.
It still has ripple effects around the globe to this day. Phyllis Molchowsky, she was one of the countless victims. She was a mom, 60 years old at the time that this happened. She talks about the struggle she went through, and she also says the government should have caught on to his scheme sooner than it did, Ainsley. Here's a bit of it. For many who invested with Madoff, the news of his arrest was life-altering. Phyllis Molchowsky, one of Madoff's victims, reflected on that in a 2009 interview with Fox News.
I answered the phone. It was my broker, and he said, "Are you watching TV?" I said, "No." So I put on the TV.
A $50 billion fraud case unfolding on Wall Street as we speak.
And I said to him, "How much did we lose?" And he said, "Everything."
There are so many victims like her, Ainsley. And I don't know if you remember, but back in 2008, when he was originally arrested, December 2008, I was the key reporter on this story. I stood outside of Bernie Madoff's apartment on the Upper East Side for 12 hours a day, waiting to see the day that he would finally go to court. It was March 2009 that he pled guilty to all 11 charges, fraud charges against him. And he spent every last day of his life in jail, dead at the age of 82. It's a look back, and it's streaming on Fox Nation now, Ainsley.
Thank you so much, Sandra. You can watch Bernie Madoff, Death of a Snake Oil Salesman, available now on Fox Nation. You can sign up for Fox Nation to see this. Plus, you can get exclusive access to other original content and events and your favorite personalities on any device. It's 8:35 here on the East Coast. The migrant surge now declared crisis escalating to emergency status in Arizona, where the governor made the declaration this week due to the surge in migrants.
All right. From Addison, Texas. Will, good morning.
Good morning, Pete. You know, we talk a lot about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's commitment to securing the border, symbolized best by their unwillingness to even visit the border. Well, I went. I saw the cartel-issued camouflage uniforms. I saw the tactics. I was there when 13 illegal immigrants were apprehended. And I talked to sheriffs from across the country who see this as a quality of life issue that impact the citizens of their counties. And they're bound and determined, come hell or high water, if the federal government won't do something about it, then they will. Watch. This group of sheriffs from New Mexico, from Maryland, Virginia, from Nevada, and all the way from Massachusetts.
You know, we brought this group together because we seized about 18,000 fentanyl pills. Year to date this year, we've seized over 90,000 pills.
We have experienced an all-time high of overdoses in Wycomico County, Maryland.
Between 2007 and 2017, Massachusetts had the highest influx of illegal immigrants into our communities in Massachusetts.
It's often been said every county is a border county. Start with Virginia having arrests of cartel members, MS-13 gang members.
I was with Sheriff Daniels last night. We're sitting here in Cochise County, and this is Sheriff Daniels County, and he told me the numbers have increased tenfold from over a year ago.
Yeah,
you're all nodding along. You've all experienced something similar?
The Cochise County Sheriff's Office.
Sheriff, tell me what we just saw.
You saw cartel smuggling.
What can be done to solve this problem?
It starts with the President of the United States. He needs to prioritize this border, all our borders, and there's consequences for breaking our laws.
There is a rule of law in this country. We are a country of immigrants. We all welcome immigration. We all do. We've all been beneficiaries of immigrants in our community, but legal immigrants.
My parents did it right. We came here legally, but we need to fix the border crisis that we have.
Because we're the county sheriff. When the feds fail, when the states fail, we're not going to fail our citizens because we're in church with them. We're at the supermarket with them. We live right next door to them. The people in D.C. or the capitals of our state don't care. We have to.
So, Pete, Brian Ainsley, this is the message these sheriffs shared with me. Imagine living in a place where the rule of law just didn't apply. Nobody obeyed. Drug overdoses spiking. Somebody's in your backyard, you call law enforcement, and they say deal with it. They say imagine that. Well, that's what the citizens of their counties are living with. And these sheriffs, who are part of a coalition called Protect America Now, you can visit them at protectamericanow.com, they're just determined to step up. If the federal government won't handle the problem, then they see it as their job to protect the quality of life for their citizens.
It's so true, Will. Every state's a border state. It was what an amazing mix of sheriffs from across the country all going down there to see it firsthand because it affects them.
Yeah, what a tough job they have.
Yeah.
Yep. They hold and they send them into the interior of the country. Now they don't even process them. Hopefully someone will pay attention. But don't worry, the vice president's in charge. She's all over this. In June, she's going to go to Guatemala, so that'll solve everything. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Will. See you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, Janice has the forecast for us. Hey, Janice.
Good morning. Yes, it's been a cold week for millions of folks. 2/3 of the country below average. And you can see we're talking about wind chill on April 21st. There's where we're at. 31 in Minneapolis, 29 in Chicago, 27 it feels like in New York City. I know, but the good news is temperatures are going to start to rise over the next couple of days. We do still have freeze watches and warnings in effect as far south as Birmingham, Alabama, parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, in towards the southeast. So there's the forecast, wind chill and the radar. We're still going to see the potential for lake effect snow, but a calmer forecast as we get into Friday. For the Northeast, we are going to deal with the potential for strong to severe thunderstorms heading into Friday and Saturday for parts of the South. So a calmer forecast, and we're going to start to see more snow for the West. So there's the forecast precipitation as we get into Saturday and Sunday. Great news for the drought, but we are going to see the potential for some heavy snow and some coastal rain. And then the potential for severe weather, as I mentioned, ramping up again on Friday and Saturday for the South, stretching into the Southeast on Saturday. So an active weather pattern, keeping us busy, of course, in the Fox News Extreme Weather Center. Back to you, everyone.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Smart. It's smart. JD.
Thanks, Janice.
Pete, Brian, and Ainsley.
Yeah.
In whatever order.
In any order. All right. Thank you, Janice.